So, peace to everybody. This is the Hood Mystic representing www.hoodmystic.com. Today we're talking about the new moon in Gemini, which happens June 13th, 2018. The title of this video is an eruption of wealth. Uh, a lot of symbology surrounding volcanoes just in my study. And then when I take a step back and I look at the news, I just Googled volcanoes, before I went online just to see what was happening. And, just 3 hours ago, a volcano erupted in Hawaii, and there's an active volcano in Hawaii. So, not saying that this volcano in Hawaii is something that you'll experience physically, but ultimately, symbolically, we all have our volcanoes to deal with. So, that's what this uh, video or lecture or whatever you call it is about. It's about really tapping into your inner volcano and letting that motherfucker rip. You feel me? Excuse my language. So the planets and aspects and things of that nature that we're going to be talking about, we're not going to be talking about all of them. We're just going to talk about a few select aspects because generally in all charts there's something that we call the dominant position, and then there are everything else. Generally in our lives there's something that may be dominant in our foremind, and you still got to go to work, you still got to pick the kids up from school and all of that, but all of that we still got dominant stuff that's on our brain. So with this reading or with this video, we're going to talk about the dominant aspects and the dominant things that show up in this chart. And I couldn't hear myself, so I apologize if I was being loud. But anyway, so new moon in Gemini, which I found was interesting, is that this happens at the 22 degrees mark of Gemini. And so Gemini within itself represents two. So, because it's like the dualistic principle, it's the inner and outer, it's the light and dark. That's what Gemini represents. So for it to be on 22 degrees, and then you have the sun and the moon, and that's like at 22 degrees too, and all of these twos and all this dualistic energy that's showing up. And then you look at Mars and Aquarius, it's going to be at 8 degrees 4 times 2, 8 degrees in Aquarius. And then you have Pluto and Capricorn, which is actually at 20 degrees Capricorn. So, all of these twos and all of these eights and all of these fours, I don't think that they're by coincidence. Really understanding the energy of two, right? Before I go forward, the energy of two represents coming up out of oneness, realizing that there are other people in your surrounding thoughts and energy field. And so coming up out of that, realizing that, oh, all this weird shit that I've been experiencing, there are other people that are just as weird as me. And so that really speaks to the sign of the times. And Pluto and Capricorn is something that we'll discuss. That'll be the focus of this video, because Pluto represents a significant energy. And I also have a talk in regards to Pluto that I'll talk about towards the end of this presentation. So if you want to know about my speaking engagement, stay tuned to the end of this presentation. But in general, these are the planets that we're going to be taking a real close look into. These past couple of weeks we've been really dealing with Uranus and a whole bunch of other stuff, but this time we're going to really take a look at Pluto and what it represents, and what it represents now, and how important it is to realize how Pluto is affecting you in your life, because this happens on the most base level and then the most advanced level. So generally I'm trying to talk to a lot of people with one message, so wish me luck. New moon in Gemini on June 13th, 2018. There will be a new moon in the constellation of Gemini at 22 degrees. The 22nd degree mark of Gemini speaks to understanding blocks in your personal life, okay? Keep that in mind, because we're going to bring that up when we start discussing Pluto. But anyways, so the personal blocks in your life that you may have been ignorant to. And now, ultimately, a person may feel like, my life is straight. My life is sweet. I do not need anything. I'm perfect, I'm in Zen mode, everything is wonderful, then this message is for you. But ultimately, we want these things in our lives. We want to achieve and establish certain things in our lives, but ultimately, there may be some holdup, there may be some obstacles, there may be some roadblocks. So this new moon in Gemini, which is interesting about it, it is going to show you exactly what your roadblock is, okay? But there's a down into that. It's not going to do anything for you. It's just going to show you, hey, this is a problem. Now it's up to you to begin to honor that problem. Now, if you don't want to honor that problem, you may have to deal with subsequent problems because the third decan of Gemini is ruled by Uranus. So ultimately, when Uranus comes into play, it's like, make the changes, boy. Like, I don't wanna. I got two sons, 2 and 4. So, I'm always their Uranus, or their mother's always their Uranus. Like, do this. Okay, we'll do it. They don't do it, then they got to deal with some type of discipline because we told them, don't mess with your mom's nail polish. And it's like, we understand we're not supposed to mess with nail polish. 2 hours later, nail polish everywhere. So ultimately, us being the Uranus figures in their lives, we have to initiate those changes so that they never mess with nail polish again. And so that's how, and these are just children, but ultimately we're all God's children. So when we have urges and Uranus says, this is your life path, this is what you should be doing, this is what you're good at, and we say, the hell with that, I just want to be comfortable. Okay, Uranus comes back, like, it smacks you on the head. So ultimately, what's going to happen is that you're going to see exactly what's holding you back. So what are you going to do to actually change it? That would be my real question to the individual. And, as we continue with this build, it will kind of bring some context as to why these things are showing up and who are you for these things to be showing up. Collectively now, South Node collectively is in Aquarius, where Mars in Aquarius will be, will be in Aquarius conjunct to the South Node. And so we talked about Mars in Aquarius in our last video, full moon in Sagittarius, which is happening tomorrow. But for this conversation, this is more of an intense Mars in Aquarius energy, because ultimately, if you don't know what Mars in Aquarius is up to, then you're like in the middle of the ocean right now with no paddle, no boat, and you just mad because all of this shit is coming up, and you was thinking about going to the party and connecting with your friends and doing this and doing that, and you finally got your shit together, or so you think, right? But Mars in Aquarius conjunct the South Node is bringing up all of that karmic shit that you just kind of suppressed and ironed over. And now that you're dealing with newer things, and the stuff that you suppressed, you thought was like well suppressed and well down, now it's coming up, and now you got to begin to address it. And so it's a beautiful thing because the South Node and the North Node is always connected. So whenever something happens on the North Node, we always want to get to the North Node because the North Node ultimately represents our destiny. But in the South Node, there are things in our past lives that we just didn't get right. And so if we got it right in our past lives, we would not be here for another life. We would be somewhere on Neptune with like all types of things going on and not really dealing with having to wake up and go to work in the morning. So ultimately, we didn't deal with it in our past lives. And so now we have the opportunity with Mars and Aquarius, very, very temperamental, very intense, very no compromise. Like there's something in your life where you can no longer compromise on, because if you compromise this, then that means that what you truly want, you'll never get to it. So this is the point where you just like, you know what, I have to be dead ass serious about what I'm doing, because this doesn't mean, start cutting off everybody, or it could mean start cutting off everybody because within you know that what's for you is not really happening yet, and so you got to really make those certain steps and those certain adjustments, whatever the case may be. And then Mars in Aquarius is very like is very like on the last leg of really going through shit. Mars is on its way to Pisces, where it becomes more of a spiritual warrior, more of an upgrade, more of a I've been through hella shit and I know everything that I need to know. But ultimately, Mars in Aquarius is really that final period where we can kind of like really fine tune what it is, who we are, and what it is we came to do on this planet. And Mars in Aquarius conjunct the South Node is really that point where it's like, okay, this is where you fucked up at before you even came to this earth. Okay, so ultimately, if you can fix this, my nigga, excuse my language, you can rectify everything, because ultimately, you know, everything that you've experienced in this life is all illusionary. It's all like fake, fugazi, not real. It's all like just to teach you things and whatever the case may be. Ultimately, you have these windows where you can tap into, you can make a impact that would reverberate not only this lifetime but really connect who you are from, you know, hundreds or even thousands of lifetimes away, by simply coming to a realization that this is who you are spiritually, and that who you are as a human being is more of a facade, more of a fugazi. And so the more you open up to who you are spiritually, when it comes around November 2018, you'll be ready to go. And you'll be ready to do whatever you need to do, because you'll understand that you are a soul and you're not a human. But ultimately, we got to really work through some of this human shit to get to where we need to get to, that spiritual warrior phase. Mars and Pisces. Uh, and so we want to talk about Neptune and Pisces trine Jupiter and Scorpio. The sun and moon are conjunct in Gemini. And so they form aspects to Neptune and Pisces and Jupiter and Scorpio at the same time that Neptune and Pisces and Jupiter and Scorpio form a aspect to each other. So, rewind. The sun is square Neptune and Pisces. Neptune and Pisces is your spiritual reality. Your spiritual reality is abundant and vast. Okay? When the sun in Gemini is squared Neptune and Pisces, that is dualistic for one. So it may show you I'm this wonderful angelic being, but I'm also a demon too. And I gotta deal with that shit. Because if I keep acting like, you know, everything about my energy is just so like this, but I got dark shit that goes along with my energy too, and I'm not addressing it. When you don't address dark shit, say for instance, you have a small piece of mold, and you like, that's a small piece of mold, I shouldn't worry about it because it's small, blah blah blah. If you come back 2 months later, what happens to that mold? It expands, my nigga. Excuse my language. So when it comes to the mold in your life, you better eliminate that shit. And don't think that because I don't know about it, then it's cool. Or because your partner doesn't know about it, then it's cool. That is black mold in your life. And we as quote unquote black people have had mold in our lives, in our community for years. All types of stuff. And so when things start to come up, whether it be molestation, rape, human trafficking, abuse, neglect, all of that shit, when that shit comes up, it's no comfortable neutral place for you to reside in. Ultimately, because there are millions of children just like you who have no support and nobody to speak up for, and they look into you to be their voice, and you're caught up in your shit not being their voice, so of course you're gonna feel all types of pressure. And I'm not speaking to everyone, but there's some of us who have been called to be the voice for the voiceless, and so you not using it, it will bring more shit your way. So if you're going through something, hey man, I'm very intuitive, very empathic, but I still can't read your mind. And even if I can read your mind, even if I know everything that's wrong with you, it means nothing for me to know it. You ultimately have to be encouraged to speak out about what you're experiencing internally, or you may be going through something externally, like you may be losing your house and you might be going crazy, but you ain't the first person to lose your damn house. You not the first person to get left. It's other people who have experienced that could be like, hey, you need to go to such and such. They got resources that'll help you out. And I know you don't want to do it. And I know your ego is like real fucked up right now. But look, you going to need these resources because you got them babies. And while you work yourself out, you still going to have somebody there to work this shit out. So ultimately, especially me, if you struggling, I'm definitely the person that you can hit up because I know all about struggle and how to get the fuck out of struggle. So generally, there's people who've been through a lot of shit and made it out that have advice and that can help you. But if you're just internalizing this shit, this energy is too intense, man. And it ain't something that you could just hold in. You can't do it. You may have been able to do it every day your whole life, but now that shit needs to come out. And if it piss people off or whatever the case may be, we're talking about you here, and we're talking about your hot fire or your coals. And if you sit and you hold on those hot coals your whole life, them coals will burn your ass and you'll just be ashes. You understand? Get rid of that shit. Throw that shit away. New moon in Gemini in conjunct Pluto. The title of this video is called The Eruption of Wealth. And what I mean by that is because the new moon in Gemini sits in conjunct to the Pluto in conjunct Pluto and Capricorn. And so Pluto in Capricorn, or matter of fact, an inconjunction just ultimately means a misunderstanding. And so Pluto represents your hidden wealth, your hidden talent, your connection to, so say for instance, you're dead center in the middle of Earth. It's like, but you have like a connection to like a deep, deep star in the nether universes. What Pluto is the satellite or the go-between between you and your spiritual reality, because every human being has a spiritual reality. It just seems real crazy, right? Because on Earth, there's 8 billion people. And so it's like everybody's a god, but you can't fathom the space and the magnitude of the universe. Everybody has their own planet somewhere off in the universe somewhere that they're God. Like, it might be a cat lady somewhere, but on her planet, it ain't nothing but cats. Or it might be a person that just sing real well, because on her planet, it's just, it ain't nothing but music. You understand what I'm saying? And we all got our planets, and some of our planets, we come from the same solar system and things of that nature. It's like, that's my friend or whatever, because we vibe or things like that, because we all have planetary influences within us. But then when we come to Earth, all of that energy gets consolidated into this little human being for a liminal period of time. And for us, it has been thousands of years that we have been on this realm called Earth, literally trapped in a cycle. And we were trapped in that cycle because we never understood who we were as spirits. We only understood ourselves as humans. So we would die, get born again, die, get born again, die, get born again, for thousands. And for some of us, some of y'all been down here millions of years. You understand? Like me, I've been here about 100,000, but I'm out of here. You know what I'm saying? This is my last go around. But ultimately, I have a job to do, which is to get this information out. And it's not for people who disagree with it, because it literally costs you nothing to be listening to a video for 20 minutes. I'm really giving this information for the people that need it, and the people that don't need it, you can just kind of let it fly over your head. But anyways, new moon in Gemini. like I said, it referred earlier when I said the new moon in Gemini refers to understanding your personal blocks in your life. And once you understand those personal blocks in your life, then you could do something about it. A lot of us, a lot of my friends understand their blocks, but like like a wall, it's just a block. Like it's just there. But ultimately, Pluto says, you know what? Especially Pluto in Capricorn, Pluto says, you know what? That ain't supposed to be a block there. Matter of fact, let me just blow this whole block down so you can create your whole world the way you want it to be. But the way things are, you can't do that. So in order for me to live the life that I really need to live, then Pluto has to come and invoke some type of change. So what are we putting this all together? If you have blocks, it ain't for you to just sit and look at your blocks and be depressed about them. Talk about how you ain't never had no man. Talk about how you ain't never had no good job. Talk about how you've been oppressed and all of this shit. This is not the purpose of blocks. This is not the purpose of adversity. So when the ancestors and the people before us, when they had their struggles, they found their goal. But yet and still, we're now in this time looking back to them like, yeah, what they did back there, it stood for me. No, the hell it didn't. Nothing that they did back then has anything to do with what you need to do now. We do not live off the shoulders of our ancestors. We are the damn ancestors. So ultimately, there will be some shit that comes in your life that will shake some shit up, that'll wake your ass up. And you have a choice. You could be depressed about it. You could be sad that this is happening to you. You could be sad that always shit happens to you. You can never get right. You know why you feel that way? Because that's a comfortable feeling. That feeling allows you to not do anything about really finding and setting your path. So it's important to address those blocks. It's important to examine those blocks, because sometimes some of my friends, their blocks are like paper thin, but they've been looking at those blocks for so fucking long that they just imagine that these blocks are just cement, can't move, and ultimately all you gotta do is just with a little touch, them motherfucking blocks will come tumbling down. Excuse my language. But what's gonna happen? It can happen so easily. But what would have to happen for it to happen so easily? That ego gonna get bruised, and you might have to deal with some conflict. And so because of those bruised egos and because of that conflict, you're avoiding the transformational changes that Pluto is offering you. And so we got a new moon in conjunct Pluto, meaning you don't understand, meaning it's off center a little bit. Like it ain't all the way like aligned. It's not in complete opposition. So generally when shit happens, it's going to be from left field. Now, if you are taking care of business, that's how them blessings gonna be, my nigga. Excuse my language. But if you're not taking care of business, that shit gonna come like a curveball. You might get hit by the pitch. You might have to take a walk. Let's talk about Pluto and Capricorn throughout history. Let's talk about the first time, or when you study astrology and you talk about Pluto and Capricorn, we talk about 536 Common Era, 536 AD. At that particular time, two volcanoes erupted and produced a thick fog that actually blocked the sun out from the sky, and it was actually dark. And so in history, they call that the Dark Ages. But you got to understand that during that time, over 25 million citizens died of, the European Empire. So we're just contextualizing astrology and history or whatever. But ultimately, at this point in time, Pluto and Capricorn was identified by a volcano that kind of darken the world. And Pluto and Capricorn also has other attributes, like total shift in guards of government, like where everything totally flips upside down. Because you got to understand, 1492 up until 1765, Britain decided to take over the world by putting colonies down throughout the world, all over the planet. And then the people in the colonies decided, like, wait a second, Britain is all the way over there, we all the way over here. Let's revolutionize and mobilize ourselves, and let's become a nation, and let's separate from Britain. And so from 1765 1765 to 1783, American patriots fought against Great Britain and ultimately got their independence. The major planetary transit during that time was Pluto and Capricorn. So when we talk about today, Pluto and Capricorn is inviting that same energy. And I don't care if you're talking about the volcanoes, I don't care if you're talking about the taking over government, creating your own government, and really taking your life in your hands, just an overall shift. And generally, like I said when I started this video, you may not be dealing with an overall, like with a physical volcano, but you are dealing with a symbolic volcano, because Pluto and Capricorn, one of the symbols of Pluto and Capricorn is a volcano. So ultimately, you know, there's something that needs to come up without you, and it needs to ruin everything in order so you can live a complete and full life. And for a lot of people, that's scary. Summary. Even though what I'm talking about is personal and inner stuff, the things that are within you will change the world as we see it today. And we need you. The people need the people. Now, ultimately, if the people think that it's something within the government that is going to free us or save us, then where have you been for the past 400 years? There is work that you need to do, because the work that you need to do, you're like a cog in the over, like, this is going to be where we really start to need each other. And so what can happen when we're not dealing with the work that we need to do, that creates a void within us. And so instead of doing the work that we need to do, we begin to look for the fillers of the void that we're filling. And even though void fillers work, they only work temporary. But if we're willing to do the inner work and really tap into the fact that we are spiritual entities connected to like light years of information, light years of data, and just shapes, and just all types of form of beauty, art, government, knowledge, art, I said art, poetry, just all these different expansive things that we can tap to, that is within us, that is otherworldly. But we wouldn't be able to tap into it if we think that we're just simply humans. And so New Moon in Gemini is really that reflective space, because Gemini is dualistic. It likes to look at itself a lot, not in a vain way, but sometimes in almost a critiquing way. And so a lot of Geminis, they project their inner dialogue. And so sometimes it's unsettling, because it's too real. And so what's too real about you? This is what needs to be dealt with, as opposed to this fake fugazi human life. The Orisha of the week is Aganju. Aganju is an ancient primitive force, and his his symbol is a volcano. And his name means desert. And they say that the reason why his name means desert is because it's just relative to his energy, as in how people use it. The Africans or the melanated people really didn't have a real reason to use it recently, because we have been comfortable with our jobs, our cars, our apartments, our clothes, our vacations twice a year, whatever. So generally, we don't feel oppressed. So why would we need to tap into an energy that is all about African resistance or melanated people resistance? But I don't feel like that right now. I feel like that energy is exactly what I need right now. So I'm gonna talk about this energy, and then I'm gonna connect it to a more modern energy, and I'll be done with the video. But Aganju, I'm gonna just read this how I wrote it, okay? If you want to look at, if you want a good read on astrology, check out my website, and the first article would be this article. So read this article, because ultimately I was just touching on stuff. It'd be better if you read it and got an understanding for yourself. Another thing before I go forward, once I get into the Orishas, once I start talking about spirituality, I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about the energy. And so if you are interested in the energy, then get with it. But I'm not I'm not the energy. Even though I am a Ganju, but when I talk about other energies, I'm not talking about me. I'm just talking about the energy for which you could get with or understand for yourself. So Aganju is the Orisha of great antiquity. Aganju represents the land/earth. He is the creator of civilization. The word Aganju means desert, probably speaking to the fact that this deity is not used much anymore. He is identified as Shango's older brother or even father. So, as ancient and powerful as Shango's energy is, Aganju's is even more ancient and even more powerful. Aganju is associated with volcanoes, the foundation of societies that are built, and is the catalyst for all civilization. He is known for assisting humans in overcoming great physical and psychological barriers. Aganjo is known for his legendary strength and his ability to bring about drastic change. In Cuba, he is known to have delivered many people out of bondage and is known to carry the heaviest of burdens. As Lord of Caves, he owns all mineral wealth and can be appealed to with some. Ultimately, Aganju is bearer of burdens, the defender of the helpless, downtrodden, and enslaved. Aganju is a major symbol of African resistance and can be used now if you feel persecuted against or marginalized. Aganju is depicted as a rough giant that has no rhythm when dancing, when in fact he is one of the most docile, humble, and generous Orisha. So, the energy of Aganju is available to you if you feel kind of some type of way. Now, law of attraction and new age spirituality has you in a sense of feeling like, everything that I say has to be positive. If I say something negative, then I am attracting that energy, blah, blah, blah. You might be going through some shit right now, personally. Aganju is more of that force that will, start it all over again, hit the reset button again, or you need to resist, or you feel persecuted against, you feel like this shit just ain't right. Ultimately, you need to deal with the energy within yourself to get shit popping, because ultimately you probably are being persecuted against, and the reason you are being persecuted against is because you have a soul, is because you have power. So it's most important that you deal with it and tap into it, as opposed to feeling this way all the time. Because I know my people, they feel this way all the time, and they really don't have a resort. And so even when you talk about Orishas and things of that nature, all of this shit is just feel good. And when you start to talk about Aganju, it no longer becomes a feel good story. It becomes, okay, now I got to do something. Now I have to overcome this stuff, Instead of looking for avoid, or just wanting some money and things of that nature. But even though money is coming, you got to really clear the way for it. So this part of the video, which is the last part of the video, which is a weird part of the video, is because weeks ago I had this dream about this symbol, and in my dream it was saying two-ball cane. I was like, I don't know what two-ball cane was, nor did I know what this symbol was, but it looked just like Facebook. So in my dream I'm like, well, that sign looks like Facebook. So I just did some cross-referencing, and I came across two-ball cane. And two-ball cane, even though I studied it months back, when I looked it up when I was trying to decode my dream, I was doing research on Aganju, and I seen this same symbol as two-ball cane. So something made me like, okay, well, now let's look up two-ball cane and see if they match up. Well, they actually do match up. Two-ball cane is of Mason lore, but in Mason lore, he represents more of an ancient, more of a lineage that falls from, Cain in the Bible. And two-ball cane ultimately represents expanding from which Cain started. So two-ball cane just represents like my son. So generally, an example of two-ball cane would be like my kids doing astrology, but like taking it like all over the planet and like setting up schools and things of that nature. They would be two-ball hood mystics. Two-ball hood mystic, okay? Because they would then expand something that I already started, because Cain just represents smith or expert. So ultimately, two-ball cane has a metaphysical energy within us, meaning that we have a soul, okay? And since we're born on earth, it's our responsibility to tap into our soul and that root primal energy, grab a hold of it, and now begin to expand it. And when we expand our energy, we awaken the planet. And, two-ball cane or Aganju, all of this energy is just on the internet, available, and able for you to access it right now. And generally, I'm just doing this because maybe you never even heard of two-ball cane, maybe you've never heard of Aganju, and now you have something to research. And so that was the Orisha of the week, and that was my video. Hope it made sense. But if it didn't make sense, be sure to read the article. Read the articles. The article makes way more sense probably than this video. But if you like this video, like it, subscribe to my channel, share this video, because you never know who it could help. And as it refers to Pluto, June 9th, I will have a speaking engagement at the Spirit of Tippereth, 1273 West Broad Street, Columbus, Ohio, 43222. We will go all the way in on Pluto. And when I say we going all the way in, I'm saying when you go in there, you gonna have an idea of your life and everything that's about to happen. When you leave, you gonna have a completely different view, because ultimately what I'm doing is I'm connecting a lot of things, and really these downloads that have been coming, I know I'm not the only one getting them, but really I gotta document it and put it out there so people can take this information and really grow from it, man, because that's really my job. If you're interested in a reading, I have a variety of different readings, a variety of different options that fit any budget. Hoodmystic.com. Hit the readings consultations tabs. If you want to talk, email me, hoodmystic@gmail.com. And everything on this video I meant. So generally, another thing, if there's something in the video you were interested in, pause it, look it up, come back to the video. I'm doing this video May 28th. The new moon is June 13th, so it's a lot of time to kind of prepare and just go over stuff. And if something strikes you and you want to talk about something in your chart or whatever the case may be, hit me up, man. hoodmystic@gmail.com. But this is my presentation, and have a good one, man. It's about to get rough. Peace, man. Peace.